let's talk about speaking. So I get this question quite a lot. People say to me, so James, English sponge, you talk all the time about listening, you talk all the time about comprehensible input and listening to English every day, but what about speaking? Why do you never talk about speaking? Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you how to speak English. Okay, that's the topic of this video. The first step in learning how to speak English is to not speak English. Okay, what I mean by that is that in the beginning, when you're learning English, the first thing you should do is you should listen. Okay, especially when you're a beginner and you're just trying to learn the basic words of the language, you should not be speaking during this time. You should just listen in the beginning. There are so many benefits to waiting before you start speaking. You will have better pronunciation, a more natural choice of words. You will get these benefits if you don't start speaking right from the beginning when you're a complete beginner. But okay, let's say that you can already understand intermediate B1 videos. Maybe you can already understand upper intermediate B2 videos and you want to start speaking. You're like, it's time, I really want to learn how to speak English. Okay, let me tell you how you do this. Before I explain how to learn speaking English, I will just mention that you should not stop listening at this point, okay? You should not stop watching and listening to comprehensible input at your level. Just because you have decided to start speaking, that doesn't mean that you need to stop listening. It's very important that you continue to listen to comprehensible input as you begin the process of learning how to speak. When you're learning how to speak English, you want English to be in your head, okay? You want your brain and your mind to be filled with English, with all the listening that you have been doing and are continuing to do. You want to have all this in your head when you begin to speak. Okay, so let's think about it. How do you start to speak English? The main problem that most people find when they are trying to learn how to speak English is that they have nobody to talk to. They don't have any native speakers of English that they can practice with. Yes, they might have some friends who are non-native English speakers who they are also trying to learn how to speak English, but it's not the best. It's okay. It's okay to practice with your friends, but the problem is you're not getting very good input from them. The input you are getting from them is filled with mistakes and things. So the best thing, of course, is to speak to a native English speaker because they will give you perfect input back when you speak to them. Or you could maybe speak to a non-native English speaker, but somebody with a very high level, somebody who is very good at English. When you start to speak English for the first time, even if you have already listened to hundreds and hundreds of hours of English before you start speaking, it will still be difficult, okay? You need to train your lips and your tongue and your teeth and your mouth to create the sounds of English. And this will take time, It will be kind of difficult in the beginning. The good part is, if you have focused on listening before that, if you have listened to hundreds of hours of comprehensible input in English, you will have all the vocabulary that you need in your head. Now it will just be a case of taking that vocabulary from your head and using it, which will not take as much time as you might think. See if you can get 100 hours of speaking. And I would say that after 100 hours of speaking, you should be doing quite well if you have listened to lots of English before that. The first step I would recommend to start speaking English for the first time is to have a conversation class with a teacher. Okay, you can go onto a website like italki or Verbling or Preply, and you can book a lesson. Not, mind you, not a lesson, but just a conversation class. In this class, the teacher will not really be focused on teaching you things. You're there just to have a conversation with somebody. It's good to start by paying a teacher for a conversation, because you really need somebody who is going to be patient with you when you are just starting to speak. Because in the beginning, you will be a bit slow. It will take you time to make your sentences. So you do need somebody who is going to be patient. Yes. You know, that's why it's not so good to have any person to speak to. It's good to start with a teacher who will be patient with you, and they will wait as you start trying to make sentences and you start trying to speak. I would recommend trying to get at least 1 or 2, maybe 3 conversation classes each week with a teacher at the beginning. While you are taking these weekly classes, you should continue listening to comprehensible input. Okay, don't stop the listening. Yes, this does cost money. However, it is the best way. If you can't afford this kind of thing, then I do have some other options for you. Aside from taking conversation classes with a teacher, you can also do language exchanges with other people. You can use apps like Tandem and HelloTalk to have a language exchange conversational call with somebody. I have spent a lot of time on these apps, Tandem and HelloTalk, and I know very well how to use these apps in the best way. When you go onto these apps, what you want to do is you want to find a serious language partner, or maybe 2 or 3 serious language partners. On these apps, there are lots of people who are really just dabbling in the language. They are only dabbling. They are not really serious about learning a language. They are just there to mess around and have some fun. That is probably more than 50% of the people on these apps are not really that serious about learning a language. You want to find somebody who is serious about learning your native language. If you are a Spanish speaker, you want to find a British person or an American or an Australian who seriously wants to learn Spanish, right? If you are a Chinese speaker, then you want to find a native English speaker who seriously wants to learn Chinese. You want to find a serious partner who, when you try to organize a time to have a call and practice, that they will actually be there, that they will come and they will show up on the day. Because most of the time, when you ask people to do a call, to do a language exchange, in many cases, they don't come. They don't come to your call, to your language exchange, because they're not really that serious about learning the language. And to be honest, especially with native English speakers, there are lots of people who say, yeah, I want to learn French, or yeah, I want to learn Chinese, but they're not really serious about it. They maybe go on Duolingo a few times a week. They send a few messages to people on Tandem, but that's it. They're not really that serious. You want to find a serious language partner. When you do find 1, 2, or 3 serious language partners who are trying to learn your language, you want to organize a weekly conversation with them. You could say, okay, why don't we do it every Thursday at 6 p.m. We're going to get on a call and we're going to have a language exchange. If you're a Spanish speaker, you could say, okay, let's do 25 minutes of Spanish and then we will do 25 minutes of English. And you can help each other to get speaking practice in the language. And of course, this is all for free, okay? You don't have to pay anything to do this. Tandem and HelloTalk are free apps. If you want to pay more, to pay for their premium subscriptions, you can, but they are free apps. You don't have to pay anything for them. So find a serious learner and organize weekly calls with this person so that you can get free English practice. The problem is it can be hard to find the right people, okay? It will take you time to find the right language partners, especially because native English speakers are very popular on these apps, because English is the language in the world that the most people want to learn. So for myself as a native English speaker, I get lots of messages coming in every day. Most of the messages say something like this. They say, hey James, can you please help me to learn English? Please help. I need your help. I want to learn English. To be honest, I usually ignore these kinds of messages. Why do I do that? Why do I ignore this kind of message? Because to me, when I get a message like this, I'm thinking, well, what do I get from this? You know, you want me to help you to learn English, but what do you want me to help you for free? Do you want me to just, you know, for 1 hour, just help you for free? You know, I am actually an English teacher and I do lessons and people pay for these lessons because it's, you know, it's my time that it takes. So, you know, I'm probably not going to help you for free, right? I'm not just going to take an hour out of my day to just help you. And imagine if I said yes to every person who messaged me on the app saying, please, can you help me? And I say yes to everybody. It would be a full-time job teaching people English for no pay. And I would end up, you know, on the streets homeless because I spend all my time just helping people learn English for free. It doesn't make sense. So let me give you an example of a good message to send to a native English speaker. Okay, you could say something like this. Hi James, I see that you're trying to learn Spanish. I'm a native Spanish speaker. I think that we could help each other to learn each other's languages. Would you like to have a call once or twice a week for 30 minutes so that we can practice our English? I can practice my English and you can practice your Spanish. Please let me know. That's the kind of message that I will be interested in, okay? Because when I read a message like that, I'm thinking, yeah, you know what? It would be good to have 30 minutes of speaking practice in Spanish every week. That would be helpful for me. I'm trying to learn Spanish and that would be good. I wouldn't mind having a language exchange partner. So when you send the message, you want to think that, like, as a native English speaker, I'm not on these apps just to help you, just for you. You know, I'm on the apps to learn the language that I want to learn. I'm trying to learn Spanish. I'm there to learn Spanish. So keep that in mind when you send these messages, okay? When I get messages like that, in the past, I have ended up doing calls, practicing with that person, right? So don't just send messages saying, please help me, because I get these messages all the time and I'm not going to just help everybody for no reason, you know. Now, if you are a woman, okay, and you want to use these apps, there is something extra that I have to warn you about. It is kind of a well-known secret that a lot of people are actually on these language learning apps like Tandem or HelloTalk to date, okay, for dating purposes and to flirt with people. They are not really there to learn languages. They are more there to meet girls and date, okay? This is pretty common and it's a well-known secret. If you are a woman, you may want to think about how you're going to make your profile, okay? What kind of message you want to send with your profile. Because if you have a profile with really good looking pictures where you look really pretty, right? You are going to get a certain type of person sending you messages. You're going to get people flirting with you and trying to date you and things like that. Now, maybe that could be a good strategy. I mean, if you do have good looking photos, you will definitely get a lot of people who want to do language exchange conversations with you. At the same time, you may not get the right type of person, right? You may not get people who are really serious about trying to learn a language. You may just attract men who are just there to flirt, okay, and date. So you may want to consider using photos that make you look a bit more professional. Yes, that sends the message that you are like a professional and you're here, you're a serious language learner and you're here to learn. You're not here to flirt. You're not here to date or mess around. You're just here to learn languages, and that's it. In your profile, you may want to put, I am a serious language learner and I want to practice my speaking skills. Let me know if you want to do a call, to do a serious, I would use the word serious many times, okay? A serious conversation where we can exchange languages. You can try different approaches. Having more attractive pictures will get more attention, but having a more serious profile may attract people like me who are on these apps not really for dating or flirting. I'm on these apps to learn Spanish, right? I'm interested in learning the language, and you will find more serious learners if you make your profile in a more serious way, if that makes sense. On these apps, you can also join a group conversation. So you can join a chat room. These chat rooms can be good, but I have some advice for you. I would recommend that you try to join the smaller chat rooms. There are some chat rooms on these apps which have loads of people in them. They have 40, 50 people all in one room, and only one person gets the chance to speak at one time. Okay, that means you're going to be doing a lot of listening and not very much speaking. If instead you join a chat room with 3 or 4 people in it, you will actually get some good speaking practice because there are not many people in the chat room. The other option is to create a chat room yourself. You could give it the title English Speaking Practice, for example. You could put in the subheading some topics that you want to talk about. I would recommend, if you do make a chat room like this, that you limit it to 4 or 5 people maximum. Okay, 4 or 5 speakers at a time. Do not really create a chat room with loads of people, like 40 or 50 people, because it just is not really very good for practicing, and you don't get much time to have a conversation that way. So yeah, the goal with these apps is to find 2 or 3 serious language exchange partners who you can meet up with 2 or 3 times a week and get lots of hours in practicing your English speaking skills. Simply having conversations with people in English is a great way to practice, because not only do you get to speak and practice your speaking skills, but importantly, you get listening practice as well. You get more input. 50% of your conversation is input. So you're learning vocabulary and learning things from the other person as you're speaking to them. So, I recommend just having loads and loads and loads of conversations. You just want to be talking just all the time in English, so it becomes very natural for you. We have an expression in English which is don't punch at the wall, punch through the wall. Okay, Don't punch at the wall, punch through the wall. So if you want to learn how to speak English, don't just do a bit of speaking sometimes. Instead, just speak, speak, speak all the time. Talking all the time as much as you can. Don't just try to speak, just do it more than you think you need to. Another option for getting speaking practice is an AI chatbot. Okay, these are quite new. I haven't actually tried speaking with an AI, but I imagine that for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, maybe it could be a good option to get some more speaking practice in. So with those three things, with conversation classes, with a teacher, with language exchange partners that you meet up with many times a week, and maybe talking to an AI chatbot sometimes, you can get lots and lots of hours of speaking practice in. With these three methods, with a mix of these three methods, you can speak all the time. And this is all online. This is even if you are living in a country where nobody speaks English, you can learn to speak English even if there's nobody physically around you to practice with. So when you have the excuse where people say, but I live in Chile and nobody here speaks English. Well, it doesn't matter because we have the internet, and I have just given you 3 ways that you can practice your speaking skills. When you are like at a B2 level or something like that, these language exchange events can be really fun. You can drink, you can have fun, you can speak to people, and it's just really fun. If you go to these events when you're a beginner, it's not really that fun because you just feel like you can't speak to people. You feel like you're kind of bothering people a little bit because they have to be so patient when you speak. And it's just best to get to a certain level before you go to these events. You can, of course, practice speaking by yourself without a conversation partner. You could go, for example, to get IELTS questions, go to get IELTS speaking part 1 questions, and just answer the questions. Just speak and answer these questions in detail to yourself. That's not a bad way to practice, actually, sometimes. Of course, a fantastic way to improve your English speaking skills would be to go and visit or move to an English speaking country. If you get the chance to spend 6 months or 1 year in the UK or in the USA, that would be a fantastic chance to improve your speaking skills. But I do recommend that you are already at least a B1 level, intermediate level, before you make the trip to one of these countries. So this is how to speak English. You need to speak hundreds of hours of English, but while you are speaking and getting your speaking practice, make sure you keep listening to comprehensible input and keep listening, because it's really important that your listening stays a step ahead of your speaking. This will give you the best results if your listening is always at least 1 step ahead of your speaking. Okay, when you're speaking, you don't want to be doing too much guessing and trying to guess the pronunciation or guess the right word. You should hopefully be speaking based on what you have already heard. Okay, what is already in your head. That's how you will end up sounding more natural. Let's talk a bit about pronunciation. Some people, if they do use the comprehensible input method, like with our videos at English Sponge, will get fantastic pronunciation because they have been listening the whole time. And some people can really just pick up the pronunciation from what they hear really well. And some people get amazing results in terms of sounding natural and having good pronunciation with the comprehensible input method that we have an English Sponge. Not everybody gets fantastic pronunciation that easily. Okay, I think it probably has something to do with being good at like music and being good at hearing sounds and copying sounds. Some people are not so naturally gifted in listening to things and copying them and hearing sounds and music and things like that. For some of you, you could benefit from some actual pronunciation practice. Okay, I do classes like this sometimes where you learn the theory around pronunciation and you have a teacher who corrects your pronunciation, and you try to, maybe you are putting your tongue in the wrong place or putting your teeth or lips in the wrong position, and a teacher can tell you to change it. These kind of lessons can be helpful for some people. You can do shadowing practice where you copy what you hear. This is probably the best way to improve pronunciation, is shadowing practice. Some people will need that. Some of you will not need it, because some of you will just listen to our comprehensible input and copy it really well and end up with really clear, natural pronunciation. Another quick tip for you is to increase your range of grammar. Okay, this is a kind of thing I do in some of my classes. Most students, they usually take the easiest route to say something. So a lot of students do not get used to using different kinds of grammar, using like the third conditional or using the future perfect or the past perfect. A lot of students never really use, they may understand them because they have listened to so much of it, but in a lot of the time they don't learn to use them. One good exercise I like to do is to have a period of time where you're going to focus on using this type of grammar. So you may have a conversation with a teacher where you're going to use the third conditional tense as much as you can in this conversation. Your teacher might ask you something like, James, if you had gone to bed late last night, how would you have felt this morning? And I have to use the third conditional to respond. And I say, well, yeah, if I had gone to bed really late last night, I would have felt really bad this morning. And maybe I would have missed my bus and maybe I would have been late for work. Or you could do a conversation in the future perfect tense, right? Your teacher could ask you, by the end of this year, what do you hope that you will have done, right? What do you hope that you will have done by the end of this year? And then you have to speak and use the future perfect tense to respond to this question. You have to say, well, by the end of this year, I hope that I will have improved my English. I hope I will have become stronger from going to the gym, and I hope I will have traveled to Spain before then. It's good to do these kind of grammar range practice exercises where you are forced to use different kinds of grammar when you speak, because from my experience, even people who are really good at English, they are advanced, they have listened to thousands of hours of comprehensible input. Sometimes they just don't use different kinds of grammar because they are never forced to do it. And so they always take an easier option because it's just easier. And yeah, so getting some forced speaking practice in this particular type of grammar can be useful to just make your English more flexible and increase your range of grammar. But having said all of that, by far the most important part of speaking a language is comprehensible input, okay? Listening to hundreds and hundreds of hours of comprehensible input so that you know how you're supposed to speak. Then with your speaking practice, it's just a case of getting used to using your mouth and your tongue and your lips and taking what you already know from your brain out through your mouth, okay? The most important part was the listening, was the comprehensible input that you did. That's where you really learned a lot of the language. But yes, the speaking practice is also important. You do want to do 100 or 200 hours of speaking practice. It takes less time. The speaking takes less time than the listening. Okay. So if you do 600 hours of listening to English, maybe you could do 75 hours of speaking and you would get pretty good quite quickly. Anyway, guys, I think that's everything I have to say about speaking, about output. Let me know if you do have any more questions in the comments section. And I wish you good luck with your English speaking journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.